Welcome to Kieu's channel. If this is your very first time here, we'd love for you to subscribe, like, and share, so you'll never miss any of our heartfelt stories filled with love, hope, and resilience. Today, we follow the touching journey of Sung Luyen and her little daughter, Kieu. Together, they plant vegetable seeds high in the mountains. And after 21 days of patient care, the joy of harvest finally arrives. Carrying their bamboo baskets, mother and daughter walk hand in hand along the long, winding path down to the market, where their hard work turns into food and new seeds for tomorrow.
The mother and daughter stopped by a small grocery shop near the market. With the little money they earned from selling vegetables, they bought packets of mustard green seeds, along with a few simple foods for their evening meal. In Kieu's eyes shone a spark of joy as she watched her mother carefully pick each seed packet. To the little girl, those tiny seeds were more than just plants. They were hope, a promise of a new harvest to come. After paying, Sung Luyen gently placed everything into their familiar bamboo basket. On the way home, the two shared cheerful conversations about their mountain garden, where tomorrow they would plant once again. Though life was still full of hardships, love and faith gave them the strength to walk forward with courage. When they arrived home, the mother and daughter did not stop to rest. Instead, they carried the newly bought seeds out to the plot of land, still blackened with ashes from the burn. Sung Luyen carefully touched the soil, making sure it was moist enough to begin planting. Satisfied, she gently opened the seed packets. Together, mother and daughter knelt down, placing each tiny seed into the earth with patient hands. With every handful of soil they covered, it was as if they were sowing not just vegetables, but also their hopes for a better tomorrow. The quiet mountain air was filled with their soft laughter, and under the fading light of the day, those small seeds became a promise of new life yet to come.
After 21 days, the once barren ground had turned into a vibrant field of green, covered with rows of fresh mustard greens ready for harvest. Grown naturally on the mountain slopes without any chemicals, these vegetables were pure, healthy, and full of life.
In the soft glow of early morning, Sung Luyen gently woke her little daughter. The chill of the mountain air lingered, but inside their small home, there was warmth. They sat together at the low bamboo table, where a simple breakfast awaited. Steamed rice, a bit of salt, and hot tea poured into clay cups. As they ate, their conversation was filled with gentle laughter. The little girl's eyes sparkled as she asked, "Mom, will the mustard greens be tall enough today?" Sung Luyen smiled, nodding softly. "Yes, my child, today they are ready. All our hard work has finally borne fruit." Between bites, they dreamed about the day ahead. The daughter imagined the joy of picking the bright green leaves, while the mother spoke tenderly about how the harvest would give them food, seeds for the next crop, and a little money for life's needs. There was no rush at that table, only peace. Each word they shared was a reminder of their bond, a love that grew stronger with every sunrise. By the time they finished breakfast, hope was already filling their hearts, preparing them for the day's work that lay ahead.
Before heading to the field, Sung Luyen carefully cut a few long leaves of rattan to use for tying the vegetables into neat bundles.
With everything prepared, she and her daughter lifted the bamboo baskets onto their backs. Smiling at each other, they began their journey up the mountain path toward the garden, their steps steady and full of anticipation.
After a long walk up the mountain path, Sung Luyen and her little daughter finally arrived at their vegetable garden. The moment they saw it, their hearts filled with joy. Before them stretched rows of mustard greens, glistening with drops of dew, each leaf fresh and vibrant, swaying gently under the morning breeze. The once barren patch of land, blackened with ashes, had now become a living sea of green. The mother and daughter put down their bamboo baskets. From one of them, Sung Luyen took out the wide banana leaves she had prepared the day before. She spread them carefully on the ground. "These will keep our vegetables fresh until we reach the market," she said softly, almost to herself. Her daughter, eyes shining, helped smooth the leaves with her tiny hands, proud to share in the work. Then, kneeling down, Sung Luyen grasped the first cluster of mustard greens. With one steady pull, she lifted it from the soil. Earth clung to its roots, proof of the nourishment it had drawn for weeks. She placed it gently on the banana leaf. Her daughter copied her, tugging at her own plant. When the roots came free, she laughed in delight. "Mom, look! I did it too!" the girl said proudly. Sung Luyen smiled, her eyes warm. "Yes, you did, my child. Every plant you harvest is a gift from the earth and a reward for your care." The little girl tilted her head, curious. "So, if we take care of something, it will always grow?" Her mother nodded slowly. "Yes, not only plants, but also our dreams, our kindness, even the people we love. When we give them patience and care, they will grow strong." The girl thought quietly about her mother's words as they worked side by side. Together, they pulled up bunch after bunch, the sound of roots releasing from the soil echoing softly in the morning air. They tied the vegetables into bundles with the rattan strips Sung Luyen had cut earlier. The girl's knots were loose and clumsy, but her mother guided her hands patiently. Each knot became a lesson in responsibility and perseverance. Around them, the mountain morning was alive. Birds chirped in the distance, the breeze carried the cool scent of leaves, and the sun climbed slowly above the horizon, painting everything in gold. Amid this beauty, the little girl's laughter mixed with her mother's gentle voice. At one point, the girl paused, holding up a bundle she had tied herself. "Mom, do you think people at the market will like our vegetables?" she asked, a trace of worry in her voice. Sung Luyen stopped and looked at her daughter. She brushed a bit of dirt from her child's cheek. "Yes, they will. These vegetables are more than food. They are honest, pure, and safe. We used no chemicals, no tricks, only love and hard work. People will taste that care in every bite." The child's eyes lit with pride, and she nodded firmly. From that moment, her small hands moved faster, more confident. She wanted to help her mother more, to carry her share of the responsibility. The baskets grew heavier as the bundles stacked higher. Their backs ached, their hands grew tired, but the joy of seeing the fruit of their labor outweighed all weariness. Each bundle on the banana leaves was more than a product to sell. It was a symbol of survival, hope, and love. When they paused to rest, Sung Luyen gazed at the field around them. She remembered when it was only ash and bare soil. Now it was full of life.
She placed her arm around her daughter and said softly, "Remember this, my child. Life will not always be easy. Sometimes it feels like barren land, dry and empty. But with patience, faith, and hard work, even the hardest ground can give life." The little girl leaned against her mother, her young heart absorbing every word. To her, the vegetables were no longer just food. They were living lessons about perseverance, about caring, and about the bond she shared with the woman who loved her most. As the last rows were harvested, they stood together, looking at what they had gathered. The once full garden was now neat, bundles laid out on banana leaves, baskets filled to the brim. Their bodies were tired, but their spirits were lifted. Hand in hand, they stood quietly for a moment, looking toward the horizon. The sunlight touched their faces, warm and gentle, as if blessing their work. For Sung Luyen, the vegetables represented survival. For her daughter, they were a picture of hope. For both of them, this morning was proof that love, gratitude, and perseverance can turn the smallest seeds into blessings beyond measure.
After finishing the harvest, Sung Luyen and her daughter sat down at the edge of the garden. They gently placed the fresh vegetables on the ground, then began using their hands to brush away the extra roots and the soil clinging to the stems. The mother carefully turned each plant in her palms, softly rubbing until the loose dirt fell away. Her little girl copied her, her small hands getting muddy, but her eyes sparkled with joy. Bit by bit, the piles of clean, fresh greens grew larger. The vegetables, once covered in earth, now shone with a rich green color, filling the air with a faint, refreshing scent. The daughter giggled when clumps of dirt scattered onto her skirt, and the mother simply smiled, gently wiping the soil from her child's cheek. It was a simple task, yet it carried warmth, because in that quiet moment, they weren't just cleaning vegetables, they were shaping hope together. Every leaf and stem held the story of their care, their effort, and their dreams for tomorrow. When the roots had been removed, Sung Luyen took the long leaves she had prepared earlier that morning and carefully tied the vegetables into neat bundles. Each bunch was secured with patience and care, making them easy to carry. Once finished, she and her daughter placed the bundles into their bamboo baskets until they were full. With the baskets firmly strapped to their backs, the two stood up, smiled at one another, and began their journey home. Their steps were steady, their hearts light, carrying not only the fresh harvest, but also the joy of a day's labor well done. After a long walk down the mountain path, Sung Luyen and her daughter finally reached the village market, a lively place where people gathered with baskets of goods, fresh food, and handmade items to sell. The air was filled with the mingled scents of fruits, herbs, and cooked dishes, while voices rose and fell in warm conversation. The two quietly set down the bamboo baskets from their backs, their shoulders relaxing after the long journey. With care, they arranged the fresh bundles of mustard greens they had harvested, placing them neatly in rows so their bright, clean leaves would catch the eye of passers-by. The vegetables, still glistening with morning dew, stood out among the colors of the market, a sign of freshness and honest labor. Once everything was in place, mother and daughter sat side by side on a small mat,
patiently waiting for customers. The little girl glanced around curiously at the busy stalls, her eyes wide with wonder, while her mother simply smiled, grateful that their hard work had brought them here. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the hum of the marketplace, they felt the hope that today's harvest might become tomorrow's meal, and the promise of a simple but meaningful life. A woman stopped by and picked out a few bundles of fresh greens. Mother and daughter exchanged a joyful glance, their hearts light with gratitude for the first sale of the day. Smiling, they gently placed the rest of the vegetables back in order and continued waiting patiently for more customers. After spending the whole morning working alongside her mother, little Dung began to feel tired and hungry. Her small hands rested on her lap as she glanced around the busy market, her eyes following the smell of grilled food drifting in the air. Noticing her daughter's hunger, Sung Luyen gently stroked her hair, then stood up and walked over to a nearby stall. She returned with a few freshly grilled sausages, their smoky aroma filling the air. The mother handed one to her daughter with a warm smile, and Gyaojung's eyes lit up instantly. She bit into the sausage eagerly, savoring the flavor as if it were the most delicious treat she had ever tasted. Between bites, she let out soft giggles, swinging her legs with delight. Watching her daughter eat so happily, Sung Luyen's heart filled with quiet joy. For her, seeing the child's contentment was more precious than any profit the vegetables might bring. In that moment, the simple act of sharing food became a reminder of love, sacrifice, and the strength of their bond.
Not long after, more customers began to gather around the little mat where Sung Luyen and her daughter had laid out their vegetables. Each person picked up a few bundles, smiling as they paid, and offering kind words about how fresh and clean the greens looked. The small pile of vegetables slowly grew smaller, and with every sale, the faces of mother and daughter brightened. At last, the baskets were empty. The harvest that had once filled their arms now rested in the hands of families across the market. Sung Luyen and Kieu Dung looked at each other, their eyes filled with relief and gratitude. For them, selling out wasn't just about making a little money. It was about knowing that their hard work had value, that the long days of planting, watering, and tending had borne fruit. Life teaches us through moments like these. No effort is wasted when it is born of love and perseverance. Just as seeds grow into food that nourishes others, small acts of dedication can blossom into blessings for many. And as you watch this story, remember, there are countless families like Sung Luyen and her daughter who live each day with courage and hope. If their journey touched your heart, let it inspire you to cherish the simple gifts in your own life. And please, support this channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing, so together we can continue to spread stories of resilience, love, and the quiet victories of everyday life.